Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Innocent Until Proven Guilty. This will be Part 11, Chapter 11, entitled Unknown Motive. They know. They all know. At first, the thought of his classmates knowing made him panic. Once Shouta calmed him down, however, he felt fine. He wasn't numb, not like all those times before, where he would lean into the nothingness to avoid the pain of it all. No. This time, he just didn't fucking care. Who cares what his class thinks of him? He was quirkless before, so what? They were ready to cast him aside before all this, so what does it even matter? Shouta knew. Shouta stayed with him. Aizawa knew. And Aizawa stayed too. Izuku knew that Nedzu had to have a reason for all this. Prior to today, he would have thought the principal was doing all this just to hurt him. As a form of entertainment, maybe. But now he knew that there was more to it. Despite all the obscure choices he's made throughout all this, they've all had benefits for Izuku that superseded any initial discomfort or pain. Hell, if he hadn't outright asked Nedzu, he likely would have continued on without admitting his motives to help him at all. Nedzu had been willing to take on the hatred of Izuku, Aizawa, and Detective Tsukauchi in his office earlier. He was willing to do this knowing he may never be thanked for it. His methods were manipulative, calculated even, and yet Izuku couldn't help but respect him for it. He knows that he zoned out, not entirely sure for how long, but that it was long enough that the tension in the room was thick enough to cut through. He didn't have to look up to know each of them was watching him, waiting to see how he would react next. Steeling himself, Izuku pulled back from Shouta and turned to Aizawa, who had eyes full of concern, reminiscent of how he'd looked at him back in Nedzu's office. Izuku let a small, reassuring grin climb onto his face. It's okay. His voice came out far steadier than he thought it would. Despite the reassurance, Aizawa's expression saddened further at the words. Problem child. It's okay to be upset. You have every right. His words were spoken softly and yet carried with a heavy weight in the quiet apartment. Shouta placed a hand on his and squeezed gently. No one would blame you for being hurt by this, Izuku. Izuku returned the gesture with a squeeze of his hand as well. He smiled at the other boy. I know that. I do. And I mean, at first, I really was. He took a slow, measured breath and continued, glancing at each person in the room in turn. At first, I was freaking out a bit. But then I realized that more than likely Principal Nedzu had a reason for doing this. I know it may not make sense, but I have a feeling it was to help me somehow. I think that Nedzu and I understand each other, in a twisted way, he thought to himself. Once the kid was settled down again and leaned back into Todoroki on the couch, Shouta spent the next hour explaining everything that was told to the class, both to Midoriya and Hisashi. What do you know about why the hell Nedzu shared some of those answers, Sho? Hisashi cut in sharply. It's Nedzu, Hisashi. I don't pretend to have any idea what the rat is planning. Shouta responded. It was the truth. Shouta had no idea why some of them were included, but he knew it was done on purpose. I might have an idea, but I'd need to speak with Principal Nedzu to confirm it, Midoriya shared. He had a calculating look in his eyes that sent a shudder down Shota's spine. Not that he would ever admit it. Shouta couldn't help but think back to the rat's words with the kid back in his office. You understand. I understand, Midoriya-kun. You did all this to help me. You couldn't tell Aizawa-sensei about One for All, could you? All things considered, though, the kid seemed to be taking it pretty well. Likely because the secret of One for All was still safe. Hisashi was still confused by the quirkless reveal and couldn't hold back on voicing his confusion. Shouta sighed, turning to look at his husband. Zashi, all you need to know is that Midoriya was quirkless and he isn't anymore. It's the kid's choice if he wants to say anything else. We owe him that much at least, he grumbled. Actually, Sensei, Midoriya cut in, eyes flitting between the three of them. It's okay. I'm okay with you all knowing, I think. Izuku, are you sure? You don't have to decide this now. You know it's okay if you want to wait. Todoroki assured him, his arm wrapped around the other boy's shoulders, keeping him close to his side. Midoriya looked up at Todoroki, catching eye contact, as his face broke into a soft smile. It's really okay, Shoto. I trust you, each of you. Through all of this, you've each stood by me, and honestly, I think it would be good to not have to do this alone anymore. Midoriya's eyes then shifted to meet his own, and Shouta gave a reassuring nod, prompting the kid to keep going. When it happened earlier, I was pretty scared that Sensei found out today. But now, it's like a weight was lifted. I feel like I've been hiding this for so long. The boy spoke softly. A silence descended on the room as everyone gave Midoriya the time to form what he wanted to say. When he finally spoke again, he shared with the three of them everything about the quirk that Shouta had learned that day. Todoroki's arm around Midoriya tightened as he spoke, and Hisashi's eyes got wider and wider as well. Once the boy finished speaking, Shouta decided to jump in again. Just to be clear, problem child, going forward you'll be doing some independent training with me, so I can assess where you're at with your quirk. His tone leaving no room for argument. I'm not making the same mistake again, and letting you stumble through this on your own. He added, shame slipping into his voice. I appreciate it, Sensei, but I wasn't on my own. I had Yagi-sensei and Gran Torino. Yes, and neither of them constituted adequate quirk counseling, I'm sure. Shouta cut in harshly, regretting it as soon as he saw the boy shift away from him a bit. He sighed again. I'm sorry, kid. I'm not upset with you in any way. I just know you suffered a lot of pain and broken bones from this quirk, and while your internship seemed to have helped, we should have done things better from the start to keep you safe. Hence why we'll be doing some extra training. Midoriya seemed to consider this and nodded. Good thing, too, since that was non-negotiable. Izuku was exhausted. He's glad he told his senseis and Shoto about One for All, but he sure as hell doesn't plan on telling the rest of his classmates. No way. It had been such a long day, and all he wanted to do was curl up in bed and forget that most of this happened. Unfortunately, he was supposed to move dorms tonight. It was going to take forever. Suddenly, his phone went off. Who would be texting me? Pulling his phone out of his pocket, he checked his messages. From Chaotic Rat God, 8:30 p.m. I've taken the liberty of having your things moved for you. The one I've entrusted with moving your belongings should be bringing the last of them to your new apartment now. Rest well, Midoriya-kun. Thank you, Principal Nedzu. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 11 of Innocent Until Proven Guilty. Chapter 12 will be up next. I know this chapter was very short, very sweet. Just picked up where the previous one had left off, with Izuku kind of recovering from the news that the entire class now knows that he was quirkless, and about his history with Bakugo. But interesting elements now that Izuku has seen more to Nedzu's character, with the interrogation and his underlying motives to support Izuku with that. He's questioning and trying to piece together, okay, what purpose did this serve? Rather than just looking at the surface level that Nedzu was doing it in some way to harm him. Instead, he's asking, okay, why? What kind of benefit is this for? And I think it's really interesting that some of the others are starting to see that as well. Izuku coming to terms with Shoto and Hisashi and Aizawa all knowing about One for All, that it's now an opportunity for him to have more support, that he's the one that's able to actually dictate who knows about his quirk status now. Really interesting elements. Of course, this next chapter is going to lead us into who the heck is moving all of Izuku's things into his new apartment, and that transition is going to take place. I hope you all are enjoying the fic so far. I've really thoroughly enjoyed hearing your thoughts, your reactions, seeing the comments that you've been making. The support on this fic has been very heartwarming for me as the one writing, so I really appreciate it. So I'd love to hear any thoughts that you had on this one. Again, I recognize the chapter was pretty short, but chapter 12 will be up next. And as always, thank you all so much for listening.